Now, I thought it might be good, right at the end of the episode, to pick the game that was most requested. So in the comments, loads of people were saying, I really want to see a patch for this game. Let's put it at the end of the video, and then I will kind of send a little email to the developers of that game saying, look, lots of people would really like that Switch 2 patch or that Switch 2 version or just an improvement patch. Who knows, there's maybe a small chance that they watch the channel or that they would see those comments and be able to justify the resources required. So yeah, it's just a little extra really. It also shows you guys that I'm reading your comments, which I am, and I think, to be honest, from what I've seen, we're kind of in agreement. It is really nice to have All Patched Up back as a regular series on the channel. It's something I absolutely loved in the Switch 1 era, and now with the Switch 2, it seems like developers have come back to life and we have patches coming in thick and fast. So we're going to have a look at a bunch of different patches today, see the results of those. Most of those, or a lot of them, have been suggested by you in the previous video, so if you'd like to suggest something for me to revisit, yeah, do so, and I'll have a little gander at it and we can hopefully check it out in the next episode. If you want to save 5% on your eShop credit, you can do so over at switchup.gg. If you're looking for deals and whatnot, we've also got switchupdeals.com, which is work in progress. And yeah, what games have been patched up this week? Well, my name's Mark Walker. Welcome back to SwitchUp. Now let's find out. If there's one thing I had on my bingo cards for 2025, it wouldn't be Ubisoft essentially heading up a series on how to improve your games post-launch, but that's what we've got with Star Wars Outlaws. Now, in the previous patch 1.0.4, they did some work on the geometry, the amount of pop-in that occurred when you were speeding through landscapes. There were a number of bug fixes as well and some general improvements, but not wanting to rest on their success, we already have patch 1.0.5, which came out on the 2nd of October.
No trouble here. We have orders to shoot if you don't comply. Don't let her... Oh, Chris!
Now, quite a big change actually. They've actually changed the way that Kay's movement is animated, so that under certain circumstances it will actually look a bit cleaner. It's really almost impossible to show that, but it's a nice little tweak that is quite unexpected. When it comes to visuals, well, they've improved flickering rocks. I mentioned in my original review that I love to play the game in the 21:9 aspect ratio, which is known as cinematic mode. We've got improved textures of mountain ranges when you're looking off into the distance, so you'd see that generally in the far distance in the background. They've also done some work on the texture loading speed after transitions. Sand and dust fidelity's been improved, and the graphics when in space as well have been improved. There have been a number of UI fixes, things that are a little bit more boring, I have to be honest, but still, they're not things that you wouldn't notice, so some flickering in menus. And by all accounts, they're not finished either. They're still working on a few different bits relating to the performance and visuals. So yeah, almost the panic button of this era at the moment. They are doing a great job, and is obviously the joint work between Massive Entertainment and Ubisoft for Red Links, the latter of which I think are the ones doing the Switch 2 version. So that's it for this patch. Now, it does still show signs of being the Switch 2 version. If you're just coming to this for the first time and thinking, wow, compared to my PC build, that's not as sharp. No, obviously it isn't. But having full ray tracing on a Nintendo Switch 2 game running at 30 locked out is actually quite impressive. So yeah, good on the devs, and I'm excited to see what they can do in the future. There are a couple of games, in fact there are a number, that I really feel like just a little delay upon the initial release would have made such a big impact on the way that they were received. And Shinobi Art of Vengeance, the Switch 1 version for sure, could have done with that. While it has had a patch, I believe, to improve performance a little, it's the visual quality when playing in handheld. That resolution in general was quite poor on the Switch versions, and it meant, yeah, if you played it in handheld, you just saw a very pixelated image in a game that should not look that way. This should look incredible. You saw it very evidently when the demo came out, and when Glen reviewed it, he couldn't believe the difference because he actually played a chunk of it on the PS4, I believe, and was quite shocked by the difference to the Switch version. With the new version, it is a night and day improvement, significantly sharper. Now, I don't think it is a full Switch 2 SKU. I think in handheld, we're still getting 720p. But regardless, it looks so much better than it did before. The jump is much less than it was. If you're playing on Switch 1, it's going to look extra crispy with that OLED screen. Resolutions across the board are improved. I think a lot of people now will be picking up the Switch version, whereas maybe before, after the initial reviews, they were like, no, I just can't be looking at that all the time. There's still some work to be done, but they're going in the right direction. And realistically, a company like Sega, they should be getting things out in a good state. So it's good to see. What have we had? We've had Ubisoft, we've got Sega, all those starving indies are out here today. Now, Cronos is an interesting one. When it released on the Nintendo Switch 2, I wasn't very impressed, I have to be honest. I think this uses Unreal Engine, and it's one of those games where the optimization was the key issue. The most recent patch saw a number of fixes related to bugs and glitches, but some of the biggest issues, chiefly things like the lighting, they were still the same. You had this really strange, like fully black lighting. It looked really odd. But the biggest one for me in my last video was related to the controls. Now, didn't matter what you did when you set your XY axis, if you tried to move the cursor in a direction that used both X and Y, so a diagonal, it would slow down to a crawl. It felt terrible, and it meant that your overall movement and accuracy just didn't feel great on Switch. Now, I would like to see if that's improved, as well as visual quality and stuff like that, but in a game as dark as this, that's not really the chief concern. So let's have a little look. Alright, first, and let's say most importantly then, we do have the fix that I've been looking for, the one that really makes a difference to the gameplay, and that's the controls. Now, while it's difficult to show you this, if I'm looking on the X or the Y axis on their own, you can see the speed the cursor's moving, and when I switch to using both of them, hitting those diagonals, we still have the same speed finally, so that's really good. Now, I don't know whether developers watch these videos or not. I mean, it'll probably be a stretch to say that they do, but it is really satisfying that something that I brought up as the major issue in the last episode has been fixed by this patch. It's just, yes, good. And it feels so much better to control now. The same goes for whichever control method that you're using. They've just improved that to the point where it feels like a decent way of playing it now. I did see some reports of improvements to visual quality. I'm not sure about that, I have to be honest. It looks like the internal rendering resolution is still very low, and then it's using some upscaling to bring the image up. Then you've got things like temporal anti-aliasing, adding some very unusual artifacts to the edges of some objects. As for the shadows that I mentioned, well, it's quite a difficult one. I thought that they'd been fixed. They looked better to me. I didn't see that same black flickering, but then I saw another video where the guy had managed to recreate that. So I would say there's still some work that they need to do there. But performance wise, it's quite consistent still at 30 frames per second. But if you were holding off on playing it because of the terrible controls, at least you can now actually control it. I'm sure it'll make a big difference, and I'm quite interested to see what they do next. High on Life was a fun game. I played it when it came out on Xbox originally, but the Switch version, well, it looked like the Switch version. I still think they did an okay job, and you could enjoy it, but yeah, the visual quality, as we can see from its original launch, was not the best. Now, the developers, I think it's Squanch, something like that, they have released a Switch 2 free update. So you can go download this now if you own the original game, and it certainly does do a lot in terms of the visual quality. But they've gone a step further. They've got mouse support, so you can have full mouse aiming if you want to use that. There's also gyro functionality, so you can change that. You can edit the sensitivities, but you can't separate X and Y axis to do that, which is a little bit of a shame. But you can invert the XY sensitivity sensitivities, which is, I guess, a minimum you would expect. It's always nice as well in a game that uses shooting that they have separate ADS aiming down the sight shooting sensitivity, and there is that option. Okay, so as we can see, when it comes to visuals, we've got a lot of improvements here. The visual quality sees a big bump. With that being said, you are only looking at 1080p when docked and 30 frames per second, which through the use of upscaling actually looks fine. You will see the same artifacts as we've seen in a couple of other titles, even ones we've looked at today. That cross-hatching you see at the edges of items when certain anti-aliasing is used. And I guess there are a few techniques that are becoming synonymous already with Switch 2 and temporal anti-aliasing and the like. And the thing with anti-aliasing that uses post-processing is it can create some blur to the image, so you almost get this token Switch 2 look in a lot of games that not everyone enjoys. I personally, back in my PC days, used to switch anti-aliasing off because I preferred having a sharp image. Whereas you don't have that choice here, and you probably won't have it, honestly, across most Switch 2 releases. That's definitely one of them. What we aren't seeing so much is full use of DLSS. Hopefully that comes in, or people get a little bit better at implementing it. But I think Squanch have done a good job here. It does look really quite good in motion, especially when playing in handheld. But shadows look much cleaner. Level of detail draw distance is actually fine. Most objects are rendered at a decent distance. There's a couple that will spawn in if you move backwards and forwards, but you're not really going to be doing that or noticing it at a very close distance. And those control options work seamlessly. They're one of the few devs to include the mouse mode support that actually works whenever you put the Joy-Con down on the table. A lot of people have it as a separate option. I suppose the perfect solution is having a toggle so you can have it not accidentally register. And you have that choice here. Personally, I would have liked a performance mode. Shooters just benefit from that type of play, so a 60 FPS, lower resolution, or lower effects version is something I would like, but it's just nice to see some Switch 2 updates, because let's be honest, some of the big names and the one that we're going to talk about next as the game that we would love to see, they just haven't materialized in the time frame I think a lot of us were expecting, or at least hoping. So that's High on Life, a nice big improvement for completely free if you own the original game. I know there'll be a comment as well asking if these apply to the Switch 1 edition. They don't, but there have been a few patches on that since it came out, and it is a little better, but still very much the Switch 1 version. So then let's finish with our little wish list. The game that everyone was talking about in the last episode that they would like to see. Well, there were two games. There's the Xenoblade Chronicles series. Everyone was saying, I'd love to see that. I personally, that's probably my biggest one. I'd love to see patches across all of those games. It'll be an instant win, 60 frames per second. I'll happily go and revisit, well, at least the last portion of them. But far and away the most requested is The Witcher 3. And I'd say it's the most plausible as well. CD Projekt Red have a history of going above and beyond when it comes to Switch. We've seen it recently with Cyberpunk. And not only would that patch have everyone going back to a franchise that's about to receive a sequel, it's just good PR, isn't it? It looks good on the companies that do this. And a native resolution Witcher 3 would be, I think, reasonably easy on the hardware, even though that game was the benchmark back in the day. And look, at the ultra settings, it would probably still explode the Switch, but we can definitely get much cleaner than what we have at the moment with the Switch 1 version. So that's it for another episode. Let me know in the comments the next games you would like to see me revisit. There are patches dropping all over the place. I obviously only have so many games installed at one time, and I have this weird ritual now that I can't play anything until I've clicked on all of them to see if an update's available. But yeah, let me know down in the comments if you enjoyed this episode. I hope you did. And as always, a big thank you to our Patreons, our members, all of you that enjoy the content. As I said at the start, you can save yourself 5% on your eShop credit by buying it over at switchup.gg. For all things Switch, all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers, guys. See ya!